What's going on, guys? My name is Jack, but you can call me Lionhearts, and today we are here to talk about Team Fortress 2, the game that has for over the last 9 years been the quintessential free-to-play shooter on the PC platform. In many ways, TF2 established that developers can succeed in making a complete and high-quality title free of charge to its players. It's pretty straightforward. If you have a Steam account, you probably have played or at least are aware of TF2 in some way. And today, as the first part of this series comparing the best of the best in the class-based shooter market, we are going to look into exactly what has made TF2 a dominant force in the gaming space for nearly a decade. TF2 is one of the original class-based shooters featuring 9 diverse character classes, adopting a very cool early 70s comic vibe to its world, maps, and the characters themselves. One thing you'll notice right out the gate if you're accustomed to more modern titles like Overwatch is that it only said 9 classes. That's right, there are only 9 classes to choose from during playing TF2. You got the small, fast Boston dude, a stereotypical soldier who is just like the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket, a destructive force in nature, Black Scholar's explosive guy, the big Russian dude with an even bigger gun, you got the Texas builder man who places sentries, you got a crazy German doctor, the sniper, and French stab man. At first that may sound very limited, but that's only the surface level. The team behind TF2 has created the stock 9 as molds for a certain playstyle each class is supposed to adopt, only to give you the player the ability to tweak it to your liking through the absolutely massive and diverse loadout system. Take for example one of our most straightforward classes in the game, the Soldier. Soldier is one of the most vital and influential picks in a TF2 match with his above average health pool and rocket launcher. He can deal out large bursts of AoE damage and control most one-on-one engagements on the battlefield. His stock kit is very straightforward. You got the rocket launcher, a shotgun secondary, then a shovel as a melee. He's meant to be a heavy damage dealer with his rockets and then swapping to his shotgun to finish off whoever hasn't been turned to dust at that point. He can seem very one-dimensional on the surface until you get the ability to add his loadout with different primaries, secondaries, and melees. You see, as you get in-game items through trading with other players or from random drops during play, you'll slowly begin to collect the different options for your rocket-shooting American hero. In total, there are 9 primaries, 10 secondaries, and 7 unique melee weapons for the soldier to equip. This doesn't include the 10 or so melee weapons that are essentially reskins of his default, but that's beside the point. This allows you to create what the TF team refers to as subclasses. Say maybe you want a rocket launcher that fires faster moving projectiles. You can have that, but as a trade-off, those rockets will have smaller blast radiuses. Radii? I don't fucking know. Maybe you figure out that if you shoot a rocket at your feet, you can move faster and now want to capitalize on your sick new movement ability without killing yourself. Well, you can do that, but it all comes with trade-offs. There are little to no straight upgrades from an objective sense in TF2. There's definitely player preference, but everything is balanced fairly well, and the few outliers are really just that. They're outliers. You essentially can have infinite subclasses as long as the TF team cares to add new weapons to the game, which is pretty awesome, and all this leads into kind of one of the bigger points of this video. I think TF2 is far more balanced than any other class-based shooter out right now, and a lot of that has to do with its very simple approach to its gameplay and character design. There are no ultimates. There aren't 24,000 fucking wizards shooting lightning out of their asses while people are flying around everywhere, waiting for their ultimate to be ready. There are just 9 classes. They have their strengths, they have their weaknesses, and not one single class is without its value to the team at any given point. And I can hear some people in the comments already going, but wait, wouldn't it be harder to balance all those fancy loadouts than to balance static characters? And the answer, in my opinion, is no. You see, because we have default loadouts for each class, we can use their stats as baselines for harsher risk-reward type bonuses to weapons that will replace their default counterparts. Going back to our earlier example, if you wanted your soldiers to have faster firing rockets, your first choice would be the direct hit. The direct hit's rockets travel 80% faster and do 25% more damage than the default rockets. That's a massive improvement, but it comes with a very hefty downside. You lose 70% of the explosive radius per shot. This creates this very interesting dynamic where if you have the skills to basically directly hit all your shots, you can easily outperform the default launcher, but the majority of players will not be able to maintain this 100% of the time, which leaves a direct hit in a very good state of balance between the default and itself for the soldier. I don't think it's possible to do this trade-off style of balancing when you talk about an entire static character, Because that character always has the same cooldowns, the same weapons, the same abilities, etc., you have to be very careful with negative attributes because if they get too harsh, you've now made a whole class unplayable as opposed to maybe just one element of that character. So yeah, TF2's balance. It's pretty fucking good. And now that we've established the 9 classes and the diverse subclass system, we should take a step back and focus on the next biggest thing that will be affecting general play in TF2, maps and game modes. TF2 is very different in a lot of ways to the majority of first-person shooters in that they take a very creative team-based approach to all of its core game modes. Those core game modes, of course, being Payload, Control Points, King of the Hill, and Attack and Defend. Attack and Defend is just kind of like an offense-defense version of Control Points with just 2 Control Points instead of 5, but whatever. There are, of course, other game modes to be had in your TF2 experience, but these are the consensus best and most competitive game modes available. And one of them I need to highlight right out the gate is Payload. Payload is literally God's gift to this goddamn game, and there's a very clear reason why other prominent class-based shooters have taken it on as some of their staple game modes as well. Payload works like this. You get 2 teams, one on defense, the other on offense. The offensive goal is to push the motherfucking payload to the end of its track, and the defender's job is to tell them, nah fam, and prevent that from happening. The game mode is simple but absolutely fucking brilliant in its execution. It allows you with good map design to create this tug-of-war style back and forth between the 2 teams. It focuses team fights near the payload itself as well as its main checkpoints. The best part in my opinion is that it puts equal significance on those team fights on the payload as well as the people who branch out and try to secure areas around and ahead of it. It just works so well for all the classes. Engineers on defense are almost entirely necessary to preventing the offense from steamrolling checkpoints. Snipers can be universally useful for key picks on medics and heavies camping the payload. Soldiers, demomen, and scouts are great roamers and fraggers, while spies try to sabotage everyone else as needed. The pyro is just kind of there as a universal fucking moving wave of destruction through everything. I absolutely love this game mode. Moving on. Control Points and all the other game modes are pretty cool too, but Payload is just where it's at in my opinion. But for the sake of pacing this video and the fact that at this point in the script writing process I am actually losing my mind, we're going to jump into probably the most interesting aspect of TF2 for more experienced players: community mods. Yes, TF2 continues the time-honored tradition that allowed its predecessors to even be made, a thorough and well-supported modding system. If you are at all familiar with Valve titles, then you know that for the most part, you can make the entire game your own, whether it be custom HUDs, hit sounds, models, weapons, game modes, and pretty much everything else that isn't nailed to the ground, so to say. This level of customization to your experience is the biggest contributor to the game basically always having new content to explore. The mod community is dedicated, and the Team Fortress team mostly draws new map concepts from the modders and adopts them into the base game, which is absolutely fucking awesome. Modding pretty much means that there will be some form of support for TF2 as long as there are passionate people out there to give it, and as a bonus, a lot of people use modding as a jumping off point to get into actual game development. So maybe you get into TF2, like modding, you get hired by Valve, next thing you know, you're the head developer on the fabled Half-Life 4 because Valve just got tired of the number 3 and decided to skip it. So, thus far, this video has been pretty much entirely positive, and frankly, that's for good reason. TF2 is a fantastic game, and it's been a part of my gaming life for a long time. But, as this is a review, I have to be critical of some things, and I'd be doing you guys a disservice by not mentioning that there is the item-based economy that many are familiar with from CSGO. Now, as the game has kind of died off in recent years, the item-based economy has actually gotten a lot cheaper and more accessible, but it needs to be said that there is a level of investment that usually comes from being a premium or serious player in TF2. If you're anything like me, the thought of shinier, cooler versions of weapons and hats are really quite appealing, and it can become a money sink quite fast. I am really guilty of spending too much money on professional killstreaks for my main class because I literally can't play without them, so be wary, this can consume your very life, or at least your wallet. It also could be a serious barrier to new players because acquiring many of the cool weapons for subclasses involves trading with other players. Really, as much as I love TF2, it's definitely not the most inviting game for new players. If you're lucky enough to have friends, yeah, you can get a definite leg up over most, but if you're alone out there in the world in your first hours of play, it can seem very unfair to be stuck with just default items. Sure, item drops are a fairly regular occurrence, but I think most of us prefer either just having our options right out the gate, or a direct means of acquisition that's guaranteed. But this really isn't present in TF2, and I can understand this being a turnoff to some. It more or less forces you to commit a lot of time to playing if you want to experience everything there is to experience, which can be frustrating. This is probably the biggest downside to being a new player, and I'd be remiss to not mention it to y'all prospective new players out there. So, kind of moving on to my closing thoughts, I think TF2 has some of the tightest and most rewarding gameplay in the gaming, period. The classes all pose different mechanical challenges, and even to this day, after playing a collective of about 2,000 hours, I can say there are still playstyles I don't know a lot about or take full advantage of. TF2 is a game meant for people who really like to get invested and really learn a game through and through. You can expect the learning curve to be very steep to those unaccustomed to multiplayer shooters, but with similar titles like Overwatch and Paladins gaining massive traction, people with experience in those games will find the transition easier than in prior years. I find that the maps and game modes all show that typical Valve polish people should be well acquainted with, and really, even though you often find yourself playing the same core of popular maps, they're all so good that it doesn't even matter. One thing that goes a long way with this is that I find TF2 is one of the few class-based shooters that I can enjoy from a solo experience as well as with friends. It goes without saying that any game is more fun with good friends to play with, but I think most of us can agree that finding friends to play with at any given time can be tough. I feel that other competitors of TF2 make the solo experience even less enjoyable by their focus on smaller player count competitive settings. Most casual games of TF2 are often 12v12, sometimes more, sometimes less. But that kind of allows you as an individual to basically do your own thing and not feel like you have to be the god who carries the whole lobby. Overall, if I had to give my nerdy rating of TF2, it would be a strong 9 out of 10. The game is in no way perfect, and there are flaws to be had for sure, but in my opinion, the charm of just about every aspect of it outweighs those few small chinks in TF2's armor. I would strongly recommend TF2 to anyone who has experience with first-person shooters and is looking for a fun, different alternative to the norm. TF2 is a very special game, and it'll be a long time before something that even comes close to it is released, in my opinion. So if you have even a basic gaming PC and are looking for a new free-to-play to try, give it a shot and let me know what you think. I would caution players who haven't played many shooters to be wary though. This game is not like Overwatch, where there are great options for those who aren't majorly experienced FPS players. All 9 classes rely heavily on aiming and precision, and the learning curve, as I've stated, can be really daunting to the inexperienced. But if you're going to push through and get better, this game really is something special, and I cannot stress that enough. Anyways guys, this has been episode 1 of the Battle of the Hero Shooters. If you liked what you just watched, smash that like button, it helps out tremendously. If you liked my mad rambling and are interested in seeing more nerdy content from me, make sure to subscribe to Nerds Mirage for more to come. Also, feel free to check out my personal channel as well if you're in the mood. Thanks for watching guys, I will see you next time.